Hello and welcome to the Podcast Cafe. This is Future Skills with Lwazi. You are listening to our feature, The Industry 4.0, looking at the digital impact in the different industries that we have and the workforce and skills required for the jobs of the future. This week I had the pleasure of speaking to one of South Africa's finest CEOs, one of the best institution, the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, Catherine Larkin.
Yes, that's correct.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us, the founder and the CEO of CILT South Africa. Just tell us about the history of the institution before we delve into what it's all about.
So the CILT is actually an international body with a presence in over 35 countries around the world, and half of those, interestingly, are in Africa. And it started over 100 years ago, just after the First World War, when people realized that to win a war, your logistics need to be in place because you need to get the right things to the right people at the right time. And so that's how the Institute was born and has gradually grown over the years. It's a multimodal institute, so it looks after all modes of transport: road transport, rail transport, maritime, logistics, warehousing, and aviation.
Wow, okay, now that really opens up this conversation. Was it formed in South Africa or somewhere overseas?
It was formed in the United Kingdom, and interestingly enough, Princess Anne is the patron of CILT because she does a lot of charity work. And when humanitarian disasters happen, she understands that you need your logistics and transport in place to get goods to people in times of crisis, and actually beyond that all the time. So it's grown. It's got a presence in every continent around the world.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic stuff. I just want to delve into industries right now. I know there's a lot of work that's gone into transport and logistics. I think that's where we need to start off because that's what's current in terms of what's going on. And looking at logistics, and I want to touch on the subject of rail, what we see happening, and the trucking industry. What is going on there in terms of the transformation that's happening within that space?
There are a number of different things happening in the industry at the moment, which in a way is an opportunity to raise the profile of the importance of transport, logistics, and the supply chain. I think before COVID, people didn't really understand the role of the supply chain, but with the pandemic, the profile of the industry has grown a lot. I think we have a number of challenges. The first, when it comes to road and rail, are infrastructure challenges. Our roads are deteriorating, ports and the railway network are not functioning or even being maintained. So that is one of the key challenges that we are facing. Another challenge that we're facing is the issue of safety and security. Cargo theft, crime, that's an ongoing challenge and a growing challenge, and something that impacts operators and people, consumers, every day on a daily basis.
Understandable. Now, the institution offers a variety of courses and modules and training. Can you take us through what are some of those with regards to the different industries? What type of courses, what type of training do you offer at the institution?
Our training is extensive. It includes formal qualifications such as a certificate in logistics and transport, a diploma, and an advanced diploma. But beyond that, we have a lot of short courses because part of what the Institute focuses on is continuous professional development, because things are evolving in the industry all the time. So what you learned 10 years ago is not perhaps relevant today. So you need to keep up to date.
This Transport Month feature is proudly brought to you by iFundi. iFundi, future ready.
Our CPD courses allow that, and it ranges from anything from green transport or sustainable transport to more the trades and digital courses. There are literally hundreds of courses to choose from to enable you to stay up to date with what's happening in the industry. And beyond that, we also have seminars, conferences, webinars on a regular basis, which is another way of staying up to date with the industry trends.
Absolutely. And I love what you're saying, that the reason for short courses is to keep up or to help individuals keep up with the professional requirements, because we see a lot of changes happening. What sort of new additions have come in terms of the types of courses as we see the digital and the green economy coming into play? how have maybe some of your modules advanced, and some of the new courses that maybe could be available that were not available?
Yes, so the courses evolve all the time, and CILT doesn't offer the courses per se. We have training providers who are accredited around the world to offer our program. So you as an individual have a choice as to who you want to study with. So the courses are continually being updated, but sustainability in transport has become a big issue. Green transport, the environment and how transport impacts on the environment is a far bigger issue now than it ever was. So those are some of the new courses, looking at the technologies, blockchain, data analytics. All of those offerings are now part of CILT. But coming back, Lwazi, to what you were saying about CPD and ongoing learning, National Treasury is busy with an initiative where they will be introducing legislation where if you want to practice in procurement and the supply chain, which includes logistics and transport, you need to carry a designation after your name, similar to what, after a doctor's name, you'll see the MBB, CH after their name, and after an engineer, you'll see the letters PREng. CILT also has designation, and as members progress and learn and gain experience, they can acquire these designations. But to keep those designations, you'll need to do continuous professional development. So you'll start seeing more and more people, which we are already seeing, that want those designations because it shows industry, it shows government, I'm ethical, I adhere to a code of conduct, which the Institute has, and I'm committed to learning all the time. Because professionalization in the supply chain is what's going to help us address corruption and have skilled experts in our supply chain so that things can happen and we can grow as a sector.
Skills, in terms of this sector, where are we coming short? Or would you say, what are some of the modules or the type of trainings that you would say people tend to overlook, and as time progresses, they need to actually focus on those? Because I think I've noticed that within our education system, people will study, and then when they go into the work environment, they find a shock and say, wow, I did not know that this is actually what the environment's like. And then they now have to go back and maybe re-upskill themselves.
Yes. Well, what's beautiful about our industry, logistics, transport and supply chain, is I believe there's space for everyone, because the career opportunities are so diverse, the learnings and the pathways you can follow. And we should never neglect the fact that we need artisans. They are the core of the transport system. Many people are promoting digitalization and AI. Yes, we need skills in those areas, but we still need your avionics people, your technicians, your railway artisans, your tool and die makers. We need those skills, and we don't have enough of them at the moment. In Africa, yes, we need also skills in terms of AI, analytics, automation, blockchain, but that's a different skill set. And over and beyond that, we actually need a lot of soft skills. These days, we need to be able to problem solve far more than we ever used to, because we have new challenges which require new thinking. So problem solving is an important skill and career path. Communication skills. Most things that go wrong in a company can be traced back to communication. A lack of communication, a miscommunication, slow communication, over communication. So communication in our industry is a very important skill, and also emotional intelligence, the ability to understand people, respond to people, and communicate and work with them the way that they need to be worked with.
And like the first set of skills, you mentioned things like your avionics and so forth. It's mostly your practical type of trade. Are we seeing a sort of like a decline with regards to that? Or do you think people are because of technology, people are now tending to overlook those courses, and then when they get into the workplace, are those lacking?
Yes. What you find is, especially youngsters, the idea of having a nice corner office with a smart laptop and a briefcase and a suit, that's what they aspire to. And they tend to see artisans working with their hands. It's a dirty job. It's not sexy. But actually artisans are getting paid good salaries these days because there's a shortage of them. And it's definitely something that's been neglected and that we need to correct. Because as you know, in Africa, there's a shortage of job opportunities. There are massive opportunities for tradespeople, even to run their own businesses, set up their own facilities to offer services to corporates. So that's what we really want to get out there, is the range of choice. And you may start somewhere in the industry. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to finish there, but it's a way in, and there are opportunities and growth.
Some of the highlights from the CILT SA Institute that you can maybe take me through. I mean, 100 years, that is a phenomenal history you've got, but what are some of the highlights, let me say, in South Africa that you can mention?
I think that within CILT recently, in the past probably 10 years, they've introduced 2 interest groups, which are really exciting. The one is the next generation, which looks after youth. People in the industry under 35 who are wanting support, guidance, wanting to work with other people, learn. So the next generation, I think that's been a nice achievement, which offers opportunities for growth. And then WILAT, Women in Logistics and Transport.
Tell me more about that.
So WILAT now has a global footprint. It's part of the institute, but it's really focusing on women, growing women, empowering them. And actually, CILT has received funding from the Transport Education and Training Authority for 2 years to train women in a candidacy program, which equips them with professional skills to grow in the industry. So those are 2 of the highlights. And I think for me also what's been good to see over the years is how the institute has really become inclusive. It started out being very strong in rail, then it moved to being very strong in road, but now it's becoming more representative in terms of the sectors that... Yes. Look, in aviation, we are still a bit weak, and probably in maritime, but there's a definite shift to a more inclusive institute.
And then in terms of logistics and supply chain, looking at South Africa per se, which industries or which sectors would you say for the next couple of years these are starting to gain momentum? I'm thinking about the young people that are studying that maybe would like to decide this is where I should, put my hand in, and where would you say these are the couple of sectors that people should prep themselves for?
I think that is a difficult question to answer because the opportunities are so diverse. And I would also encourage people to think beyond logistics and transport because everything is linked to it. So, for example, we look at some of our strategic economic sectors, agriculture. I mean, that is the fundamental to South Africa's growth and Africa's growth. But you need a proper transport system. So one can look at opportunities within agriculture relating to logistics and transport. The same applies to mining. Our export markets will crumble if we don't have a proper transport system, but mining also represents an opportunity. So does manufacturing, for example. So I think the opportunities are many. It's really all about looking at someone's interests and skills and focusing on that in terms of how they want to grow and develop in the industry.
Absolutely. Those 3 industries that you've mentioned, actually, young people we rarely speak about those. And again, we have to come back to this. It's because of tech. But then again, there's what's called tech is now everywhere. There's agri-tech, there's tech in transport, there's tech in everywhere. How has technology impacted all these sectors?
Well, technology has made doing business easier.
Okay.
And it's also provided opportunities for businesses to become more efficient. Being able to track goods, to be able to track vehicles in real time enables you as a business to know exactly where you are, where the risks are, where you're not performing. And it also enables you to share information with your clients in real time so that they are up to date with what's happening. They know where their goods are, and they know in terms of delivery times if you're on track or if you're not on track. It's Tech has offered and continues to offer opportunities, even, for example, sharing information. You find in the past that companies had to do everything by themselves, but these days you're able to pool data. So it's not 100 companies trying to reinvent the same thing. It's one platform, one technology that supports industry.
Absolutely. CILT SA's footprint in Africa now. I'd like to expand just a little bit, because I mean, today could be having somebody listening from anywhere in the world. What has that been like, or what does it look like? Where do you have institutions of learning across Africa?
So within Africa, we probably have a presence in about just under 20 countries, and that includes countries like Malawi, Zambia, Kenya, DRC, Ghana, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Namibia. And what's really nice is every year all the CILTs get together. It's called the CILT Africa Forum. So just African countries get together to discuss challenges, look at how they can collaborate, etc. That's a very powerful network. And in fact, the next Africa Forum happens in April in Zimbabwe. This year it happened in Rwanda. So they choose a different country every year. But I mean, especially if you're looking at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and looking at growing your business, or maybe pursuing a different employment in Africa, the Africa Forum is a very good vehicle to look at that. Because where are you going to get such good exposure to all the African countries in one place at one time? And often what we find is countries that don't have a CILT branch also attend, because they want to access that network, the expertise, the professionals in our industry.
No, absolutely. Speaking about the African Free Trade Agreement, I love the fact that CILT is actually, I mean, more than 20 countries. That is, it's very expansive, what do you see that doing in terms of, I think, even the network of the forum for CILT is probably going to grow. I think it's an excellent thing that other countries that don't have the institution also want to get involved. How do you see that driving interest across the continent, especially amongst business people and young people, specifically that the free trade agreement in relation to your institution?
I think they're very, very closely aligned, and there are a lot of synergies. I believe that to enable the agreement, we need to focus far more on intra-Africa trade. As a continent, we barely trade with each other. When we compare our continent to other continents, we are streets behind. And for me, that's a starting point. Yes, we can look beyond the continent, but let's get it right within Africa first, and actively work together to trade with each other. Having said that, I know that transport and logistics is a key challenge, and the cost of transport in Africa is exorbitant, which is what makes it difficult for small businesses to trade, because by the time they've added the transport costs on, their products become too expensive. And that to me is a starting point. How can we address that? I've been in Rwanda twice this year, and the discussions have revolved around it. And I've spoken to many small businesses, and they just have such a fantastic product. But when they add the transport costs on, it's not viable.
What can be done there? I mean, this has obviously been a problem for quite a while. And what needs to happen? What would you say? And as somebody who's gone out into Africa, what do you think needs to happen there? You might not have a solution for everything, but where do you see it going wrong, and what actually needs to happen?
Well, I think from the private sector's point of view, I don't think we should wait for governments, etc., to put policies in place or look to them. We need to come up with solutions in partnership with governments. But for me, some countries have taken risks which are good. I think companies should offer incentives or come up with special packages or special rates, especially for SMEs, and make some kind of investment in the future. because without that happening, I can't see how in the short term we're going to overcome that. But it's actually a very good topic for a hackathon or an event, etc., because we can talk about the after, but that's a real challenge, the high cost of transport and logistics.
Seriously, must be. What are some of the benefits of somebody enrolling at a CILT SA institution? Because this year what I've picked up is not showing this level of interest, specifically in the trucking industry or let me say logistics. People tend to get comfortable, maybe just as a truck driver, for example, and then they don't upskill, and then they find themselves after a couple of years that they're not up to par with what's going on, and then they're not able to get promotions and so forth. What are some of the benefits with regards to the modules and the training that you offer?
Well, I think for me, the starting point when people are looking at joining an association is you get back what you put in. So an institute can offer many, many benefits, but you as an individual need to make use of them. It's not something you join, you pay your fees, you sit back and it happens. You need to participate in events. You need to be active on the different WhatsApp groups, ask your questions, say, I'm looking for this information, I need to connect with this industry. Where can I get the latest research on this? Read the publications that the Institute puts together, and their local ones and their international ones and their African publications as well. Follow the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Be part of the conversations, ask your questions. And our qualifications and programs, what's interesting is because they're internationally recognized, they are portable. So what you study here is recognized in any country where the CILT is. Often you'll find is what you study in South Africa is perhaps not recognized in another country. So if you want to go and work there, it's not recognized. Our international qualifications are. And youngsters these days really want that international experience. So having a CILT qualification is portable, which for me is a very big selling point. And more youngsters, and actually older people too, are wanting that international recognition.
Looking at what, I always look for models in other countries or in other continents that are working. And I always ask myself, isn't it possible to copy and paste? One of the best models I've seen for inter-regional trade is the European Union. And I know it took them years to get it right. How is it? What's stopping us from learning from them and then taking some of those models and just maybe starting regionally, let me say in the SADC? Wouldn't it work? I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking out loud, but it's something that I look at all the time. I mean, the way that they do things as a region, what are the benefits for us doing that, and what are the challenges? Why don't we just copy and paste it?
Well, that's a very good question. Why don't we, if it works? I know that Africa is unique, it's got its own challenges, but there are learnings we can take from any trading block in terms of what works and what doesn't work. I think one of the challenges is when you break down borders, there's a need for countries to trust each other and collaborate and be open to that. And some countries obviously are a bit more cautious than others. But I mean, there are trading blocks in Africa that are way more successful than the SADC region because they trust, they collaborate, and they've broken down the borders and have one-stop border posts, and it's a seamless process. So I agree with you. And we need to make it happen because otherwise we're just not going to grow our economies. And yes, some countries might want to protect their area, but imagine doing business with 1 billion people in Africa as opposed to 60 million in South Africa. Surely you want that billion.
Absolutely.
So it's a mindset, I think, and a process. But I think we also need strong leadership. We don't have the strong, firm leadership to make it happen. I mean, the countries like Rwanda have achieved incredible things.
Tell me about that, actually. That I was going to bring to my next question. I know Rwanda has made advancements. I hear that a lot. You are somebody who has been there. What were some of the learnings or some of the things that you saw there that you were like, okay, this is wow?
What an experience. What an experience to go to Rwanda. Everything is just easy. It's easy to do business. Nothing is too difficult. For example, you don't even need to have a visa to go into Rwanda. It's one of 5 countries in Africa that you don't need a visa. So immediately, it's easy for you to go and do business there. There's connectivity everywhere. The infrastructure is good. No potholes on the roads. People comply, whether it's road safety, legislation. There's a whole culture of support and compliance. And I think it's purely driven by strong, firm leadership and enforcement of policies and legislation. You might speed once in Rwanda, but you'll get your ticket and it will be punitive enough that you won't do it again. And it's just that culture of, yes, adhering to rules and wanting to make it easier for people to do business. Quite a few companies have moved their events to Rwanda simply because it's just easy. Whereas in some countries, it's just difficult to do business. You can open up a company in Rwanda in half a day.
Is it? Because I hear a lot about that.
Yes.
I just wondered, is it really like that?
Yes, it absolutely is. They are a shining light in Africa, and one can see it through their development and growth. Decisions are made and followed through with. And that's the thing. They have policies and they execute them. We in South Africa are very good at policies, but implementing and executing them, no. And when it comes to even transport policy, we have a great transport policy. It just hasn't been implemented. And we keep wanting to revisit the policy. We don't. As I think Gavin Kelly from the Road Freight Association must have alluded to. Everything is there. We just don't enforce and implement.
Wow. Aviation is something is an industry that, and I guess it's because we hardly see the airlines they're working up there. Is an industry that few people engage in or talk about. What are some of the courses or the type of training that's needed for one to get into that industry? Because I would imagine the whole free trade agreement kicks off as more countries trade with each other, air also comes in. I just wanted to just touch a little bit on that. Does avionics have anything to do with that? I'm not somebody who's so clued up on aviation, but what are the trends there?
Well, aviation is a critical industry for us in Africa and is part of the total transport network, especially with some of the delays that we have at the ports at the moment in South Africa. Some companies are using aircraft far more than they ever did just to get products to where they need to go to. But having said that, it's an expensive method of delivery. I heard last week that some retailers have flown in goods, and that's unheard of. But their customers are needing the goods, so they're prepared to pay the premium to get their goods on time. But aviation as an industry is highly regulated, very sophisticated, and offers a lot of opportunity, whether you are flying people or whether you are flying goods. There are a lot of career opportunities, whether it's aircraft fleet management, aviation maintenance, the whole passenger transport, goods transport, and as you say, the maintenance of fleets as well is a massive business. And I think that it offers a lot of opportunities, but as I said, it's highly regulated. But there's some exciting stories about aviation in Africa. They have obviously had a lot of challenges because of COVID, but the industry is recovering and moving forward. Yes.
the sudden surge of, or is it just because I've just started focusing so much on transport? I'm seeing I'm hearing also a lot of stories, which are great, of women in transport. And are we seeing an interest in it? Because, before it was unheard of, especially amongst the African communities. What do you think has contributed to the sudden participation of women within transport?
I think that more and more companies are realizing that a diverse workforce, an inclusive workforce in terms of race and gender and age, is a productive workforce. It's a happier workforce. And when you have a happier workforce, they are more productive, and ultimately your business is more profitable. And I think we're seeing that, and we're seeing that also women have particular strengths in certain areas, men have strengths in certain areas, and together we can do far more. So one finds, for example, women, for example, are, and this is a generalization, are more organized, are more focused on planning. Now that can be very good for you if you're in procurement or administration organization. They can play a stronger role. You also find that they tend to listen more. So they're better sometimes at problem solving. And this is the beauty about our industry. There are roles for everyone in the industry. And I think women are claiming their space and working with men to make sure that it happens. We need more women role models in this industry, and we're starting to see them. And there's some wonderful, wonderful success stories of women that are really achieving a lot. And having said that, it's not necessarily leaders, although there are a lot of women leaders, but at all levels in the company.
This year, I think let's get back to road a little bit. It's actually road that's causing the issues, and that's because I would say the lack of involvement of rail. I think rail was let down for a long time now, and then we see the pushback coming in from the Marines that say, wait guys, hang on, we cannot have so many trucks coming in. What's going on in that space? I mean, I think we're seeing three modes. It's rail, it's the marine, and it's road at let me say conflict. So how can one understand it from a look, and what type of solutions in terms of skills are needed there actually?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that the challenges that we are experiencing at the ports now, it didn't happen overnight. This has been coming for years, and it's something that probably happened over 20 years ago when government took a conscious decision to lessen its investment in rail. And obviously that has consequences, but this is only being felt now. Our ports were not designed to take the volume of trucks that are currently needed there to get goods to the port. So this is obviously resulting in delays. The whole system that offloads the coal from rail onto the ships was designed for railway wagons, not for trucks. So hence the delays, and obviously the volume that a railway wagon can handle is far more than a truck.
Is it?
Far, far more. So instead of offloading one railway wagon, you have to offload, 30, 40 trucks as an example. So it's longer, more complicated. They don't have the equipment, the proper equipment at the port in the volumes they need to do it quickly. And as a result, we have this massive backlog now of containers and goods at the ports. So we still need to get rid of the backlog, and we still need to deal with the current loads.
What's that doing to our trade relations? How does that impact the trade? I want to come back to that just lightly, but I'm sure that has backlog. I'm sure that has a hectic impact on trade relations.
Yes, and unfortunately, people don't seem to understand that. A lot of companies around the world are choosing to use different ports in Africa instead of Durban and Cape Town. So Maersk, for example, announced a few weeks ago they will bypass the ports and go to Mozambique, for example. And that's massive. And it's not just a short-term challenge. The impact long-term is going to be felt, because companies want their goods. They want to know that if you say they'll get their goods on the 20th of December, they want to know that they will get it. Not that it will get to a port and it disappears and you don't know when you're going to get your goods. So it's got a massive impact on our economy, which means an impact on jobs, because if companies are choosing to take their goods via Namibia, Mozambique, etc., we have fewer job opportunities and lower economic growth and loss of confidence in our country. Loss of confidence, and that's the number one factor.
Wow. Looking at 2024, what are some of the exciting modules and the type of courses that you see that the institution offers that people who are listening can actually look forward to?
I think that there's a lot of interesting new programs in terms of looking at cybersecurity, for example. The fact that we live in a technological age, there's obviously far more risks inherent because we're sharing data. It's a transparent supply chain. So cybersecurity is an issue, and it's constantly changing. Blockchain, the whole issue of fleet management. And the way you manage your fleets now is very different to the way it was, a decade or two.
Is it? How has that changed? I hear a lot about that, about fleet management, how it's changed. Can you just maybe explain to somebody who is listening, like, how has it changed?
Well, with automation, digitization, one is able to track things in far more detail now, which helps you understand your security challenges. You can run your businesses far more efficiently because you've got data that monitors and tracks everything, as opposed to 20, 30 years ago where it was very paper-based. So you never really had an accurate picture of, up-to-date picture of where your goods were, because it was all in books. Now it's at the push of a button. And this is where transport has evolved now. You're not just offering customers a transport service, you are offering them more value, because you're able to share information and reports that help companies to realize how they can make things more efficient, where they can optimize route tracking, for example. All those kinds of technologies are available, and that helps companies to really be more efficient and more profitable.
Fantastic, Catherine. My last question, where can people get hold of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport if they want to get ODP to apply?
Yes, so they can visit our website, www.ciltsa.org.za. We are very active on LinkedIn and on Facebook. All our contact details are on the web site, and they're welcome to reach out.
And then, but what it's holiday season now. When do you open for 2024 for applications?
During the first week of January, but as you know, transport is a 24-hour, 7 days a week business. But yes, we'll take a little bit of a break. But from the first week in January, we're happy to chat to people about careers, and let's strengthen our industry. Transport, without transport, everything stops. So let's see how we can bring in young people, talented people, enthusiastic people who want to make a difference and actually keep the wheels of our economy turning and growing.
Catherine Larkin, thank you so much for making the time, and you have yourself a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, and to you too.
Thanks a lot.